Hello, KFC SuperCoaches. You'll be well aware that the SuperCoach BBL season is done and dusted. KFC SuperCoach NRL and AFL now open. So if you want to enter your team for either of those games, head to supercoach.com.au today and make that happen. But we're going to look back today on the BBL 12 KFC SuperCoach season and possibly have a very similar chat to what we had 12 months ago, because for the first time in KFC SuperCoach history, we have a back-to-back winner, which I didn't think was possible. Certainly didn't think was possible in KFC SuperCoach BBL, which I think even Andrew admitted just before we jumped on involves a fair bit of fortune. But yeah, it takes something special to go back-to-back. So we welcome in our champion for BBL 12 and also our champion for BBL 11 as well, a familiar face that you would have been able to play against this summer as well as one of our experts, Andrew Langley, whose team Diabolical Point finished 90 points clear at the top of the rankings. Andrew, congratulations, mate. I think we're still all in awe of the fact that you managed to go back-to-back. How are you feeling, or how have you been able to reflect on, a bit of history in KFC SuperCoach?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me. It's an interesting one. I think I'm in a bit of disbelief. I know I was right at the pointy end in those last couple of rounds, but part of me thought, luck won't go my way in the last couple of rounds and I'll fall short. So, disbelief, I think. Just like last year, didn't quite do the big jump like I did in the last round last year, but things went my way, which was great.
Well, that's the interesting bit. So for those that don't know, last year, Andrew did something pretty crazy in the last round. I think you were 11th overall. Going into the last round, picked a couple of point of difference players that rocketed you to number one with a really big finish. This year, for probably the last 3 or 4 rounds of BBL 12, you were in the top 3 or so players, certainly around that sort of top 10 mix. How different was the feeling this year, knowing that you were right in the mix rather than, having to throw a bit of caution to the wind last year and just hope for the best?
Yeah, it's funny. I played it a bit differently this year. I know last year was a bit different because we had 4 teams on the double and we were given 5 trades because of COVID. So I deliberately just went all or nothing, trying to pick 11 players I didn't think the leaders would have. This year I think I was second or third in those last 2 weeks. And I was trying to pick 1 or 2 players to be a bit different to catch up because I only had about 60 points to catch up. But I didn't want to pick too many point of difference players because I thought those behind me will overtake me if I go a bit too crazy. So bit of an unknown. Probably the thing that got me over the line, I think, in the end is I didn't play Wade and Jewel in the last round purely because I knew all the teams around me had them both, and I thought I'll just have to go for a different Hobart batter and hope for the best, and I'd pick Crawley, and Crawley ended up doing better than those two, and that's probably what got me over the line. And I only picked him because I just wanted a different Hobart batter to what I thought others had.
Yeah, no, it worked out very well. Talk about timing your run to perfection, Al. So, Andrew, I don't think you're in front at any point apart from the last round, BBL 11. You weren't in front at any point apart from at the end of the last round in BBL 12 as well. So you've timed your run to absolute perfection 2 years in a row.
Yeah, no, it's worked well. I'm a bit worried about the shorter season next year. I think I might fall short. But I guess I just set a plan at the start of the year. I base a pretty loose plan around the fixture and where all the double game rounds are and the buys, and I sort of picked this long-term plan that I loosely stick to and hope things go my way, and it seems to work. Well, it worked the last 2 years anyway.
So, Andrew, can you just talk us through that final weekend? I mean, how closely you're watching the games and watching the scores? Because from outside we're well outside the top 3 or so competitors. We were sort of trying to follow who might have had their noses in front, and it seemed like coaches were holding trades or trying to do different things to outfox each other. So, I mean, how sort of exciting or stressful was that for you?
It was exciting in a way because I know the guy who was leading for the last 4 or 5 rounds, and we're actually in a league together. So we've been having a bit of banter the last few weeks. I was telling him I was coming to get him, and he was trying to hold on to the lead. So we knew each other's teams. I didn't know. I was third going to that last round, so I didn't know second's team, and I didn't know fourth team, but I did know first team, and I did know I'd sort of taken the lead off him with, I think, going into the very final match of the round. So I knew I had him covered. I just didn't know how I was going with everyone else.
Al, can you imagine, Al, like what it would? I was about 1,000 overall, and I still hated watching those last couple of games when players dropped and went out
Oh my
cheaply
God.
or performed to my expectations. Like, how'd you go, Andrew? Did you watch many games, or did you just have to tune out and hope for the best?
I missed the second last game in the afternoon because I was working, so I had no idea what was going on. I remember timing lunch so I could just double check my players were playing and then missed that entire afternoon game and then tuned in for the last game. I did deliberately set my team up for that last round to have a bit of flexibility going into the last game. I had 3 stars players and I had 3 scorchers, so I knew I could either put a donut on the field to get a bench score or I could play a star depending what happened in that last game. And I think that helped me too, just trying to set the team up to have maximum flexibility for those last couple of games, because I remember from last year a lot of players seem to get rested and teams do little experimental things with their lineups in that last game or two of the season.
Oh, sorry, Al. So at what point?
I was just going to say there were some shocking drop catches in that game in particular, and in that last round. Who did Steve Smith drop that catch off at the end of the Sixers game, where there was absolutely nothing riding on it whatsoever in terms of the result, but for KFC SuperCoaches, it was an absolute shocker. So is that the most frustrating thing to watch? I mean, there can be quite a few frustrating things in the BBL format.
I remember the second last round when I brought in Webster and Nick Coulter-Nile to have as my sort of flexible players for the final round. I think one of the final overs of that second last match, I think Webster dropped the catch off Coulter-Nile. I thought, oh no, 30 points gone, just like that. But that happens. That's SuperCoach. I've learned no point crying over a duck or a drop catch or a near miss or someone takes a screamer, because when I look back at my team over the year and I looked at it last year, I made plenty of mistakes. I had plenty of players fail and plenty of players went well. So I think the trick is to just don't worry about it. Just move on. You've got a plan. You're going to cop those hits. It's for that reason I try and minimise the players that only have one role in my team. So I won't often have a pure batsman. I'll have someone that bowls as well, or he's a wicket keeper, so he's a chance for some more fielding points. And you just hope, therefore, if they don't do well in their preferred discipline, they might snag a few extra points.
Yeah. So, Andrew, talk us through that last sort of the last day in, I don't know, when it actually dawned on you that, like you say, you're aware of some of the other coaches around you and sort of how they were scoring. I know from a couple of group chats I was in that maybe one or two that were close to you made some sort of last-ditch moves to try and get over the line, which obviously you would if you still had a trade up your sleeve. But at what point did it dawn on you that you were likely to finish as number one again?
I think I missed that. Like I said, I missed that afternoon game. And when I came home from work and I was just catching up and I was seeing the scores, I thought, I reckon I'm pretty close here. Knowing how I had my team set up for the final round, I was pretty confident I'd finish in the top 3. But, I just didn't know. And I knew there wouldn't be much in it. I thought there's only going to be 50 points probably separating us, and it'll be down to a bit of luck how those players in the final game go.
Did you watch that last game?
Yeah, I did. And had the family coming in and out. And it wasn't as nerve-wracking as last year. I think last year I came from nowhere, wasn't expecting to win, and just took this threat. But everything was going my way right from when Boise took his double hat-trick. And so towards the end, it was like, geez, not only have I caught up, I'm going to win this. Whereas this year, I was sort of just enjoying the ride, and I would have been just as happy to finish top 3. To me, after winning it, coming back again and finishing in the top 10, I was pretty proud of that effort. So I wasn't sort of as nervous as the year before when I really thought I had a chance to finally win something like this.
He's far too humble. If it was me, I would be talking myself up big time, especially going back to back. Like once might be deemed a fluke, but I don't think you can say that back to back was. So, Andrew, I was going back through your season. It feels like when you really made your move, like you're in a decent spot around round 6, round 7. I think after round 7, you were about 63rd overall, and then round 8 with the Sixers and Hurricanes on the double is when you really made your big jump up towards the top 10 as well. What do you recall of sort of that period of the season and what you did right to get yourself those 50 or so spots and really put the number 1 spot in reach?
I think what paid off at the start of the year, I said about planning my whole year, and I worked out from the fixture that the season was could be equally split into 3 sort of chunks. There was rounds 1 to 5, 6 to 9, then 10 to 13. And the reason I based it around that is I worked out what's the absolute maximum number of double round players I could play if I chose to do it. And those sections didn't have an influence on each other. So they're actually 3 quite separate. And I knew I could start my team again after round 5, and I could start it again after round 9 and still have quite a strong team and focus on those double game rounds. And that's, I think, that 5 to 9 chunk. I think it was, I'm trying to remember now, 6 and 7, I think, were just single game rounds with no teams on a double, but 8 and 9 had team.
Yeah.
But I'd set up to have a lot of players on the double in 8 and 9, and I think that helped me. And then same for those last 4 rounds. So I got myself up into that top 10, and then the last 4 rounds I hovered there, and then those last 2 rounds when I knew I could try and get a lot of double round players into my team, I sort of pounced a bit then, I guess, whereas others may not have planned a couple of rounds out for that. So that's where I may have overtaken.
Well, a couple of related questions on that. I mean, how far ahead are you looking in the fixture and, when you're making your trades, and how important is cash generation in KFC SuperCoach BBL? Cash
generation, I think, is huge early. This year, all my early trades were based on break-evens and low break-evens. And I think my team value by the end of round 5, my team value plus the cash I had in the bank was about 2.7 million. I don't think I've ever had it that high, that early in the season. But it just meant I didn't have to worry about players for the rest of the year. I could just focus on the best players from round 6 onwards. But those first 5 rounds was definitely trying to rotate players that were about to lose value out of my team and get some players that are about to go up. Because I guess there's 2 signs when someone's got a low break even. They're obviously in a bit of form. They're scoring, so they're worth getting in and take advantage of that. So that's part of my game early. And then sort of from round 6 onwards, it was just about trying to get the best players possible I could into my team. And I based the best players on their role, like I said earlier, those players that have those multiple roles. So, for example, Matthew Short, the best role, I think, in SuperCoach. He opens the bat and he often gets 4 overs. You can't do much better than that.
Do those, when you're talking about getting cash, where does that most of that come from? Are you looking at, real bench cheapies, or it's just, someone who's, about to go up even if they're already, 125K?
Yeah, a bit of both. So it's in my starting team, there are a couple of, so I think I started a couple of bottom price players. I think, testing my memory, I think Bo Webster started about 62,000 and Sutherland started about that price. They were the 2 cheapies I started with. Then I had a few others around the 90 or 100 mark who looked value, and they all paid off. And if they looked like going up in value, I kept them. And if they didn't, I tried to move them on for someone who might have just had a good game and I knew had a negative break even and was about to skyrocket in price. And it didn't matter whether they were 150. They looked like they were going to make 60,000 next week. I just tried to get him in.
Did that include Stoinis at the start? Like, obviously, he was probably the most popular pick, and then he completely bombed. And then it was a bit of a question: do you, just hang on to him because he can't get any worse, or just get rid of him straight away?
Yeah, I got rid of him straight away. So I started Stoinis, got that big donut, and got rid of him. But that was part of how I'd planned those first 5 rounds. I had 4 players in my team that I knew I had to get rid of 3 of them just because they'd had their double game round, the Stars and the Strikers and the Thunder, and Stoinis just happened to be one of those that I thought, right, he's gone. I'm not too attached to players, so if the fixture doesn't suit, like people like Daniel Sams held him all year, it's hard to let someone like him go, but once the Thunder had their 2 double game rounds, I kept him for a few more rounds, but then said, no, I've got to focus on the fixture and where those double games are, and that sometimes means not having some of the stars because that just doesn't suit.
Yeah. So, Andrew, one of the big plays that a few thousand coaches made late in the season was getting Steve Smith in just before he scored those successive tons for the Sixers as well. Did you end up with Steve Smith in your team at any point, or what was it that was able to offset his scores if you didn't have him?
I didn't and cried when I was watching him get those huge scores. Once again, and it's purely a preference I have to not focusing on batsman-only players. And so when you fade those type of players, you've got to be prepared to take the hits when they go well. And occasionally, like Smith did, they do it 2 games in a row on you. So I might have. I'm trying to remember what round he came in. I'm thinking of my trades, but I was probably looked more someone like Bo Webster came in late in the season for me, just because he was getting named at about number 4 for the Stars. He was bowling both spin and medium paces and seemed to be getting a lot of overs. And to me, that was more value Supercoach wise than going for Smith, who was just opening the bat.
Did you get any of those returning test players? Because Smith was about the only one that actually worked out.
Yeah. Renshaw. I think Renshaw is what worked for me in the second or third last round. I had Renshaw in my team, and when he went big that week, and that helped. And that was just a bonus. I had him in my team because I knew he was coming back from the test side, and I was looking for a donut player, and I grabbed Renshaw knowing he'd come back in, and so he just happened to be sitting on my bench with the emergency on him when he went really big, and all right, too easy, I'll take that score. And that's the round I think I jumped up into second after that round.
Yeah, that's right, mate. 1,006 you scored in round 11 with Renshaw's 147 coming off the bench, which is pretty handy. So what's the reaction been like from the KFC SuperCoach community, Andrew? I imagine your sort of Twitter and your DMs and all that have been blowing up, and I don't envy you sort of next season as to what it's going to be like with people hitting you up wanting advice on how they're going to win it next summer.
It was funny this year because I got a couple of private messages just on social media from people after certain rounds because I was one of the celebrity coaches, just showing me a screenshot how they just beat me in a round, and because I can only see the 10 leagues, I can't see everyone I'm playing. And, okay, didn't even know I was playing you, but well done, you beat me. So it'll be interesting. I think after winning twice, I'll probably have a few more of those next year, and and that's what made it hard towards the end of this year. I was doing a few tricks late with my team, just with the trading players in and out with no intention of keeping them, just because I knew people were watching my team. Whereas last year I was able to sneak up because no one knew me, but this year I knew I was being watched a bit closer, so I had to be a bit devious at times with what I was doing. Yeah,
definitely probably makes your achievement all the more remarkable if it wasn't already. So which players do you feel like you sort of owe thanks to, or going to owe a Christmas card to a bit later in the year that sort of really helped you out and got you there? Are there any that are new favourites for you after the way they performed for your team?
I'm trying to think of the players I had most of the season. I mean, someone like Short, I had him last year. He's rewarded me again. I think Webster. I stuck with Webster. People, his role was unsure. He wasn't bowling early. It was unsure. I think he's become a bit of a hero of mine. He's not that sort of high profile player, but he just seems to get the job done. Just I should have a look here because I've got it in front of me, my team for the final round. I think Renshaw for that late move, and then you've got someone like Aaron Hardy. Really started coming good. Number 3, I had him for a good chunk. And Fahim Ashraf, I had him most of the time he was in the competition, and he ended up being a really good pod because for whatever reason people weren't grabbing him, and he wasn't scoring brilliantly, but he just seemed to – he had a couple of really good games, and he sort of do something each game, and I think he was probably one of the ones that got me over the line in the end too.
Yep.
Did anyone survive in your team from round 1 all the way through?
I don't think so. Just trying to look. Don't think so.
It was hard, wasn't it? Because even
check, because I play that sort of following the fixture, I'm not scared to trade players out. So they just go. I don't care who they are. There's probably 1 or 2 survived. I'd have to go back and check.
But it's even Cooper Connolly, a lot of people trading him out late in the season because I think the second last round he was useless for a loop. Like they played the first game, so there was just no point having him anymore. So it's probably one of those summers where I don't think there'd be too many people out there that ended up with or carrying a player. I almost ended up doing it with Matthew Gilks, but managed to offload him with a couple of rounds to go, which was nice. Al, I think you're gonna ask the all important question, which is probably
exactly
in the first place. But anyway,
I was just going to ask Andrew what your plans are for the 25K. What did you buy with it last year, and then how are you going to spend this year?
Good question. We did a few holidays and things last year, just around about. We were going to plan on a big overseas holiday that never happened, but
maybe this year.
Got away a bit with the family, so there's probably still a little bit there that we can do something. But I just bought a new car at the start. My car died at Christmas, and we just bought it, and I'll pick it up tomorrow. So I imagine that's exactly where all the money's going on to that new car. That wasn't the plan, but it is now. So that's a handy little bonus.
And do you play cricket or just a big fan?
Just a big fan. Yeah, I played when I was younger, but I love my cricket. I love my footy and love my cricket. But
so do you play
on the couch these days?
Do you play KFC SuperCoach AFL as well?
Yeah, I do, but nowhere near.
Is there any similarity between anything you can take from this into the footy season?
I think it's hard. I guess it's about backing your gut. With sometimes decisions, you just get a feel for how it is, and you go with someone, and it seems to pay off. My gut doesn't seem to work with AFL as well as it does with the cricket for whatever reason. I'm an Essendon supporter, and I know I have a lot of bias towards their players, and it probably comes back to bite me, but we'll see. I'm determined. I seem to finish in that 3,000 to 6,000 mark in AFL, so I want to have one good year at least. Get a bit higher.
Just when I was going to say you seem like the perfect fella, and then you say sport Essendon. You've just ruined it all. Set it up so nicely there. So, and what about when you're not dominating KFC SuperCoach BBL, Andrew? Like, what do you get up to outside that? What sort of hobbies and work and all the rest you do? You're Victoria based.
Yeah, I'm in Victoria. I'm up near, if you know Victoria, up sort of between Alexandra and Marysville, that part of the world.
Oh, nice.
Eildon. Yeah. So it's a nice part of the world. I've got 2 teenage daughters, so plenty of ferrying them around and doing things like that. We don't have public transport up this way like in Melbourne, so doing things for them. But that's it. And work takes it out of me. So
you can afford to hire a couple of limos or something to get them around for a few weeks, maybe, instead of put yourself off dad taxi duties for a bit.
Oh, don't worry, they're already trying to hit me up for some of the winnings there.
Of course they are. Well, unless Al's got anything else, Andrew, we'll let you get back to your day. But congratulations again. I think we're all we've all played KFC SuperCoach for, I don't know, a decade or more. And just in awe of what you've been able to achieve by going back to back. We confirmed that hasn't happened in AFL or NRL. So you're the first person ever to go back to back in any format of KFC SuperCoach, which is just remarkable that it happened in probably the hardest one to nail down in KFC SuperCoach BBL. So congratulations from all of us here, and enjoy your prizes and all those Twitter DMs that I'm sure are going to come your way.
Great, thanks for having me, and it's a joy. And I'll be trying for 3 in a row, but we'll see.
The hat trick out.
Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. Just before next season to get all your tips. And back you in. We'll be following your progress, because 3 in a row would just be insane.
Yeah, I won't hold my breath, but I won't not be trying anyway.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Andrew, and thanks to everyone that's tuned in today. You should be able to recap this on our YouTube, and we'll chuck it up as a podcast as well if you have tuned in at any different points and missed any of the chat. But if you did miss it somewhere in it, Andrew is somehow won KFC SuperCoach 2 years in a row. So definitely worth tuning in for the first sort of 22 minutes or so and getting his insights into what it takes to actually finish number 1. So thanks again, mate, and congratulations.
Thank you.